So let's talk a bit about the Vatican dragon. So yes, there are dragons featured in the art and iconography of a lot of Vatican buildings, more as heraldic symbols, but they're not related to the actual worship of anything. It's more the history of the popes that came from very wealthy families and their association with the papal states. Now, moving on to the east side of the map, the Fountain of Confession, where you go and move the dragons to face one another. And believe it or not, that's actually a real thing. It's just not called the Fountain of Confession. It's called the Fountain of the Sacrament. And I believe somebody on Reddit felt very strongly that it was very strange to have dragons at the Vatican, or they felt that it wasn't very representative of their religion. And certainly, I can understand their concern about being represented. But there are dragons at this Fountain of the Sacrament, and it is almost a one-to-one. You have the two towers, turrets, and on top of both of them, you do have a dragon on it. And also on the fountain itself, in the middle, you also have another dragon. So this isn't actually inaccurate. The only inaccuracies here would be one, that there's a secret entrance on the back, that you can turn it and there's a mechanism, and that there's writing on the sides of the turrets that give you those hints. So I mean, plenty of modifications, of course, but it's done in a far more subtle way than one might imagine. I also don't know if there's an entrance on the left-hand side like in the game, but yeah, and believe it or not, the actual fountain, the dragon in the middle, it spews water in a circle, so it spins. And as for why it's a dragon, I believe it's been described as a Borghese dragon, or all of them have been described as Borghese dragons because they're a heraldic symbol of the Borghese family that had a degree of influence here, so it might sometimes be as simple as that. And Pope Paul V was originally known as Camillo Borghese, and he was the Pope and ruler of the Papal States from 1601 to 1627, so pretty short period in time, but he came from this very wealthy family that still is around. One of, I believe, Napoleon's relatives was also a Borghese. So, and here's their modern version of their coat of arms. So they have an eagle on top and then the dragon at the bottom that you've seen in the previous photos. Now, as for what the building itself that's a part of, it's actually used to be the mint, so where they made coins. I believe it's more of a storehouse or storage area now since then. Now, that said, the Borgheses were not the first family that used dragons and dragon imagery and had a pope in power, and with all the iconography, some of the iconography of their family represented in Vatican architecture. So the Boncompagni family also have dragons represented at the Vatican. The only major difference being that it doesn't have a tail. So here's an example with the Boncompagni family dragon plus the keys of St. Peter above it, and right below the key and above the dragon is his face and a crown. That's also a component of the Boncompagni family's symbol. And from the Boncompagni family, actually, in 1572 to 1585, so a few popes before the last pope. I know it's a short distance from 1585, 1601, but there were several popes in between, changing pretty quickly. So they had one family member, Ugo Boncompagni, who became Pope Gregory the 13th. Here's kind of a more contemporary version of that dragon, but also an older one from I believe a family book. With the older, you can see the dragon without the tail, you can see the face, and then the tiara on top to complete it. And just to finish off, not too long ago, there was a lion dance and a dragon dance, Chinese style, at the Vatican in front of the Pope. So while the Vatican is a very sacred space and a very sacred place for worship, it is also very much a place of other cultural elements. There are a lot of artifacts from earlier periods before the rise of Christianity. It doesn't factor into the religious component of it. It's part of the cultural dimensions of the Vatican's history. I think in the Apostolic Palace there is another big statue. I don't know if it's necessarily a dragon, but it's more like a chimera of some sort. That one I haven't seen any photos from the Vatican of it exactly, but it's in one of the little offices on the second floor of the Apostolic Palace if you'd like to search for it in the game. that one might not be an actual thing, but yeah, but otherwise. And that's about it for this time. I am working on a tour of Sukhothai, some of the temples, and also I'm starting work on some of the Shadow of the Tomb Raider stuff as well, and also Last Revelation stuff. I try to work on all three of them at different times. Those should be out in a few weeks, hopefully. And yeah, before the next Tomb Raider remastered set of games come out, which will be super exciting. I'm going to be quite busy, but that's going to be really awesome, and I'm going to be tempted to just play that. And I'm sure many of you will be too. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll continue making more of these videos. Thanks a lot for everyone who's subscribed so far as well.